Maybe. Ah, there they are. Or well, I should say, there we are. We are
Hi,
live
everyone.
now.
We are there.
We are there. They're here. Something is happening. I don't know.
Someone's where?
No, someone's on first.
Who's on first?
No, that's second. What's on second?
What's on second? I don't know. Is on third.
Okay, well.
What kind of person? It just depends on where you are.
That's true. That's true.
Or what you think.
So,
or what you perceive.
So you're cheating. You're going into our topic already.
How am I cheating? I'm just alluding.
Alex is on her bed. All right. Welcome, Alex. So it is Friday with Fran, and we are so glad you're here. And you can probably tell that we're both in a little bit of a weird mood. Fran messaged me a few hours ago and asked if I had any ideas for today. And I said, perspective. And so then she typed, she's like, so in regards to this or in regards to this? And I said, exactly. And she was like, what? And so, hi, Mom. So I have been in just a strange mood. I'm trying to stay upbeat. There's some stuff happening in our personal lives to a dear loved one of ours, and it's sad. And so I'm trying not to focus on that. I'm trying to be. It's part of life. It has to happen, but it's not something that anybody enjoys when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, just trying to stay positive and not be so heavy. I did a live yesterday in a Facebook group, and it got a little heavier than I was anticipating. It wasn't my Facebook group. It was somebody else's. I was a spotlight for their giveaway, and I was talking about, like why I do what I do. And I started scolding people, and that's never good, especially when they don't have a chance to stand up for themselves. So, I was scolding school districts, so shh, don't tell anybody. Okay. Only the people in that group will know about it. It's okay.
We're live.
Yeah. Well, those people from that group aren't watching. It's okay. It's fine.
Okay. Oh my goodness, my friend, you are in rare form today, man.
I promise, Mom. I've had nothing to enhance my mood or affect my mood.
Uh-huh.
No external substances. Let me say it like that.
Okay. I'm not seeing us in your group come up.
It says I've got all the check marks that I am live. Let me see.
Refresh it.
Let me do it.
I want to do it.
I want to do it.
Well, maybe we both can do it.
I found us first.
There we are.
Okay, that's the only.
Oh my goodness gracious.
That's the only one that I had up. I don't have the YouTube or the business page pulled up.
I have the business page up, and I have that one up now, but I don't have YouTube showing. But
okay,
I don't know.
Well, so for anybody who, hey Crystal, for anybody who did see our topic for today, we are talking about perspectives, and I'll share with you the definition of perspective. There's actually two definitions of perspective that I found. So I'm going to share those in the chat really quick. Oh yeah, and I'll have to go over all the business stuff. So if you are with us, let us know, and several of you have already, so we're so glad to have you here. If you're watching it in replay, let us know that you're watching it in replay. Be sure to comment and poke fun at us, whatever you want to do. Ask your questions, make your suggestions, and make sure that you like the page. And if you are in the Facebook group, make sure that you give permission to StreamYard, which is the format that we use, to post your picture and your name. StreamYard is very respectful of you being in that private group, and they don't automatically share that information out because they don't have your permission. So you have to give them permission to do that. If you are on YouTube and you're watching, please hit the subscribe button. There's 20 21 subscribers, which is almost a full alphabet, Fran. So
Okay.
that's pretty exciting to me.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I was happy about that. So just keep those numbers going up. And, the point of Friday with Fran is not only to invite you into our weekly conversations, but the reason we have these weekly conversations is to try to change people's perspectives. And the only way that they can have their perspective changed by us is if they know about us and if they hear us and if they listen to what we have to say. And whether they take that information to heart or they just brush it off and say, that's just two crazy women, I'm not going to listen to them, which that's their prerogative.
Or you could say, that's two crazy women, and I'll listen to them.
Right. Absolutely. That's what we hope. However, perspective. So I just put it in the chat. It's from, I don't know, this dictionary.com or what website I pulled this from. But it says that perspective is a particular attitude toward or a way of regarding something, a point of view. So in that definition, it does not say that it is a right thing or a wrong thing. Alex, I hope it's just you. I'm not breaking up. Is anyone else, Mom or Crystal, having problems viewing us today? Are we breaking up? And so perspective is a point of view. It's in my way of saying it, it would be your opinion. So I tried to set Fran up, but she didn't go for it before we started the show. So what I did to her was I held this up and I said, Fran, what is this?
It's a book.
And she goes, actually what I said was, what do you see? And she said, those who can't teach. And I was like, no. But what I wanted to get, what my point was, it's the what part of a book?
It is the cover of the book, the front cover of the book.
It's the cover of the book. So she sees, and you as the audience see the front cover of the book. That's not what I see. If I really was a argumentative person, I could say that's not the front of the book. That's the back of the book. I'm looking at the back of the book. And so the idea was, of course, if I turned it around and showed you what I was seeing, then we would see our perspectives would be the same. We would see the same thing. Of course, now I'm saying, and now I would go, oh, right, yeah, it's the front of the book. And then Fran would say, no, it's not, it's the back of the book. And we could go back to the whole, who's on first? What's on second? I don't know who's on third.
Uh-huh.
So
go
ahead, Fran.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. So I had a different idea about perspective, about how to share perspective.
Do you want me to share it now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. Oops. Let's see. What do I have to do that? That. I had to find which toggle to hit.
All right. So what do you see, Shelley?
I see you on a horse in two different locations. One, you're probably at a riding center, and the other one, you're on a beach.
Yeah, I'm in Galveston. That was like my happy place.
Ooh, yeah.
And then it got hurricaned out a couple times, but I think they're back now. That was a very long time ago, in case you can't tell. But what else do you see?
Well, I see you on the horse, and you look very capable on the horse in either picture.
Awesome.
Am I supposed to keep going?
Nope. I'll help you out here. Kind of like you helped me out with the book because I didn't get where you were going with it. But okay, so theoretically speaking, I said that was a really long time ago, the one on the beach, and it was. And it was prior to all my different abilities occurring. And the other picture was just this past summer. And so if you take a closer look, you can see that I have a few extra aids as I'm riding the horse to help me. But other than that, I could still ride the horse without another person around me.
Right.
But the perspective, if someone were to notice that or to go, oh, you're on a therapeutic horse at a therapeutic riding center, so therefore you are a special rider. That would be the perspective.
Right.
Instead, they wouldn't go, oh, you happen to learn to ride horses in Germany and rode horses in every country you visited because that was your goal. And so you went on a variety of different horses, and you're probably pretty capable of at least staying on top of the horse.
So you have a different perspective when you look at each picture. You, Fran, have a different perspective, because when you look at the picture on the right of you on the picture on the beach, you know where you were, you know what was going on in your life, you have the background perspective of what this picture, and you have memories and you have thoughts about this picture. And then when you look at the picture on the left, your perspective is different because your experiences are now different. You have, like you said, you know, you've gone through, you have some things that are helping you. You're wearing a helmet. You have your prosthetic leg there. Or is that your brace? Or is that both?
It's a combination of a lot of legs.
Okay. And so you have one perspective. I have one perspective, because actually I think I know where you are in this picture. But somebody else, well, like I said, just looks at it and it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, you're in a barn, or you're outside a barn, or, you know, so that leads me to my question of, where do perspectives come from?
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing.
So how do we, for you that are watching, for joining us, how do we get a perspective? How do we develop a perspective?
I don't know.
Does it just happen? Is there something, somebody give you I'm also gonna, while that's happening, I'm gonna share the, as I told you, there were 2 definitions that I found for perspective. One is, I believe, a noun. No, they're both nouns. They're both regarded as nouns. Okay. Was trying to see.
Are we going to have grammar lessons now on top of everything else?
No. What?
Okay.
Why did it just do? Oh, okay. All I saw was one of my posts was just NT period. But I guess when it went to YouTube, it had to make it 2 different. It had too many characters, so I guess it made it 2 different.
Yes, it did.
What am I trying to say? 2 different comments.
Mm-hmm.
So the second definition is the art of drawing solid objects on a 2-dimensional surface so as to give the right impression of their height, width, depth, and position in relation to each other when viewed from a particular point. So I like both definitions. So did we have any comments yet as to, oh, I also probably should show that so that it shows up on whatever location people watch this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have comments yet.
I don't either. And you know, I can see Alex, where Alex is saying on your page we're fuzzy.
Oh, really?
And in your group we're not, and on YouTube we're not.
Okay. Well, I know StreamYard and Facebook groups were having some difficulty because Facebook changed their algorithm recently. And so how the live streaming through StreamYard was showing up was not great in the groups, but I thought I got an email that said that was fixed, but now maybe it's a problem on the business pages.
Oh, okay.
Because Facebook is always changing the algorithm so that you get a different perspective.
Oh,
yeah.
And this can help you, can change your perspective.
Yeah. Sleep or whatever's in the cup.
Or lack. Well, I don't think the cup would make a difference, but it could. It depends upon what you fill it with. What you fill it.
That's true, and we could get very.
And yes, I am filling it with only healthy things.
Okay, we could get very philosophical and say, are we really talking about just in the cup, or are we talking about us as the cup? Which takes us back to many episodes ago when you had your beautiful, I don't know, would you call that a poem or a story or
monologue?
Monologue? Okay. Titled The Cup.
Oh, yes.
So, perspectives. How do we get them?
It's a combination of a lot of things. It's our entire life experiences rolled up into a single action, thought, or word at that moment.
Yep. And can our perspective be swayed to any direction, any particular direction? Or is everyone's perspective going to be the same?
Well, I think you proved the point that it's not just from the starting with your book. Where we are physically, where we are mentally, where we are emotionally, where we are chronologically will shape that perspective.
Right. And or I shouldn't say right. I agree. Because I don't know that there's a right or a wrong. But and now that I think about it, even your answer of it's a book, to you, it's a book. To me, when I look at this, it's a feeling of pride. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of behind the scenes. It's something that took 3 years of my life from start to finish. It's got a lot of me in it, not just because I wrote it, but because everything in here was shared with me or my own experiences. So to me, this isn't just a book. But that's what I want you to see. I want you to see it's a book. I want you to see, hopefully, that it's a book that you want to read and learn about these families and maybe connect with them, or find a connection to them. So the reason that perspective is on my mind is because so often I think things are said and we can't maybe, or don't, or maybe shouldn't have to think about the perspective of the person that is hearing what we are saying. What do you think? Do you think it's a can't, a shouldn't, or a don't have to?
You're like really deep today. You're really making my brain work. I think that we should always be aware of another's perspective. Because that's what you were asking, right?
Do you? Yeah.
I got a little muddled in it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. When I think what I said was when people speak, do we have to consider another person's perspective of how they're going to hear
for sure
our words?
And another way to say that, instead of using the word perspective, would be, do we need to be aware of the audience with whom we are speaking as well? Do we need to, right? I mean, that's another way to think about it.
There's no right or wrong here.
So I'm just trying to think of, because if you can't grasp the concept of perspective, well, can you grasp the concept of to whom you are speaking? I was trying to break it down a little bit more on how can you communicate perspective even to someone that can't grasp it.
Right. And this, you could also phrase this as, are you responsible for someone else's feelings of your words?
It depends on in what position you are, from which position you are speaking. If you are speaking from a position of authority, you have more power with your words. You have your words. Sorry, Bubby just keeps calling and calling and calling.
Oh,
He's having a rough day today.
okay. Do you want to step
No,
off for a little bit? Okay.
no, but so if you're in a position, yeah, you are more responsible for how the words you convey to those, especially those that are under you. I think
Okay.
then perchance, then let's say you're just having a casual conversation with someone. I
Okay.
would say maybe not as much. Was that going to further than you
No,
wanted to?
no, you're fine. I agree to a point. I agree that we have to be careful with our words depending on who we're speaking to and what position we have, but are we responsible for someone's feelings to our words?
No, we're not responsible.
Okay, that's how I think. But again, these are just opinions. These are
Right.
not, to my knowledge at least, anywhere set that it's a rule or a law or a standard.
Mm-hmm.
And this has taken me a very, very long time to get to that point, because I used to feel very responsible for other people's actions and feelings of my words. But what I realized is I can't know that other person's entire perspective
Mm-hmm.
because I haven't walked in their shoes. I'm not them. And so I don't, and even in that exact moment, I don't know how that person is feeling. You know, they could come to a situation where the day before we could have had an identical interaction, and the day before it was funny, and on this day it's hurtful. Something about their perspective changed between the day before and the day that we're and now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we're responsible for another person's feelings, but I do think we have to, as you talked about, especially if you find yourself in a position of some sort of authority figure. And if you're a boss, if you're an education person, if you're an administrator over your teachers or over a school, which that makes you a boss, I guess. If you're a parent, if you are a youth leader, if you are a pastor, a police officer, all of these are positions of authority.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not in authority directly over you. Like, well, a police officer is in authority, whatever district you're in, if you're in their district. But if they're in outside of their district, then they're not your authority. So, but do you still have to, what am I trying to say? Do they still hold a position of authority over you, in the sense that if they were to say something to you, would you feel like you would kind of need to do it, or you would want to do it?
Mm-hmm. You would feel more, yeah. Would their words? I was, yeah. And
You know, because
sorry, go ahead.
Kevin and I have a brother-in-law who's a metropolitan police officer in a fairly large city. And we don't consider him an authority figure when we're with him. He's our brother-in-law. But that's because our perspective of him at that moment is he's our brother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
However, if we're at his house and he has to go to work, he changes into his uniform and puts on all of his gear. And my perspective of him changes in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
When there's a lot of difficulty in his city where he works. And, I know that, maybe there's been a shooting or something in his city. My perspective is, first, still, he's my brother-in-law, but he's a police officer in danger.
Mm-hmm.
So how I'm feeling at that moment changes. Because, or like, hey, Michael, Michael's with us today. Yay! He hasn't been live with us in a long time.
Mm-hmm. And did you see what your mom said?
I tend to avoid certain conversations with people because I know what their reaction will be to certain subjects. And we do that. I absolutely think we do that. In fact, not very long ago, we were talking about a topic for Friday with Fran, and she said something to me, and my perspective in that moment took me down at one path, but that wasn't the path that Fran was thinking, but the path that I went down was going to take us down a political path. And I said, I don't want to talk about that on our show because I don't want it to go down the perspective that I had. So why am I avoiding political topics? Because they're controversial. And I don't want to offend anyone in our audience because someone in our audience and I'm, or even you and I may have a different perspective of a situation or a politician or a whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So as you were speaking about authority and then perspective, and I had gone the route of words and how they carry more weight, it reminded me of something I'd seen, one of those memes.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, "Sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will scar me forever. Could you please just throw rocks?" But I was thinking how that so applies to perspective of how the words. So yes, we are not responsible for how another responds to our words or actions, but we are responsible for the intent within our heart of our words and actions.
Yes, I would certainly agree with that.
So I so many times, how often do we hear, "Oh, boys will be boys," or "Well, she's just a crier," or
A daddy's girl.
yeah,
Or a mama's boy.
or yeah. So we're putting our perspective upon that person.
Mm-hmm.
We're putting our biases, maybe another word we could use for that, upon that person. And so are we doing them a disservice in the process?
Good question. And I think our biases lend to our perspectives. Think about, and by that I'm thinking about sports. Well, actually, or politics. If we have a team, if you are rooting for one team and I'm rooting for another team, and let's say it's a football game, okay? So my understanding of football is all the very tip of the football has to do is touch, just be over the goal line, the end zone line. then that's a touchdown. Okay, so that's my understanding. I think that's right. Anybody who's a big football fan, if I'm wrong, tell me. So let's say it's a touchdown away of a score in a game, and your team has the ball, and they are time is running out, and my team tackles your team, and the guy with the football stretches as far as he can to get that football over the end zone line. Now I'm going to say, because my bias is towards my team winning, that is not a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to say it is a touchdown because you want your team to win. We could be standing right next to each other watching this and have the exact same point of view. But our perspectives are different, and we're going to come up with different outcomes. So that's where I mean that our biases feed into or lend themselves into our perspectives, because my eyes are clouded with, I want my team to win. And your eyes are clouded with, you want your team to win. Is one of us wrong?
Only the referee standing on the goal line would know the truth.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. There's only that one person who pulls out that, I don't even know if they have to pull out a tape measure. All you got to do is look, okay, here's the line. Is the tip of the football over the line or touching the line? I don't even know what has to be over, if it just has to touch. I'd have to ask my nephew.
It has to cross the plane of the line.
Right. So then my next question is, because usually those are, it's not just like a hair's line. It's, it's a pretty thick line. So does it have to go across both planes, or just the plane
that is
attached to the
field, and here's the end zone? It has to cross the one on the side of
it. Wait, which one? It has to cross the one that's touching the field?
The end zone side. The end zone side.
Okay. All right. So again,
how did we get stuck on football?
Because it's an example that I've heard, and so I was just using it.
I'm like, I don't think you or I have ever spoken of football together.
No, we haven't. But that's a story that I've heard when I've heard other people speak on perspective and biases.
Okay.
Is that
all right?
A sporting event, was it a strike? If you want to go to, baseball, was it and to me, that's an even more difficult one, because it's an imaginary box. There aren't lines directly drawn over, says, get the ball right through here, and this is in the strike zone.
And it's the perspective of the umpire. And if he's not in the correct position for that batter,
right,
he could have been in the correct position for the previous batter, but for that batter, if his eyes are not aligned in the middle of the strike zone on that batter, he's going to perceive the highs and lows in the wrong areas.
Yep. So it comes to his perspective.
Oh my goodness gracious. My son has now called at least this many times.
Are you sure you don't want to? Michael, are you an umpire? Because I may answer this question differently depending on the answer to if you're an umpire or not. Yeah, actually, it really wouldn't change my answer. Yeah, I believe umpires, referees, I believe everyone can be biased.
Oh yeah.
And go ahead.
I officiated basketball and soccer for many years. And you had to separate yourself from where you were officiating, especially if you knew them. A lot of times I would take games further out, because then I just didn't know anybody. Then I didn't ever have to worry if I knew anybody.
Right. But we even have to be careful with things like that, because sometimes you have biases and many times actually, you have a bias and you don't know you have it until the bias is challenged. And maybe you have a bias towards a certain color, and maybe one of the teams has that as their color. And so without realizing it, you might be leaning more towards leniency on a call for them, whether a good way or a bad way, than the other team.
Okay. So now that we've like really dug deep, let's make this real life tangible moving forward.
Yep. Let's bring it back to what we normally, are kind of encompassing umbrella of special education, special needs.
Yeah.
And going forward.
So how do we take our biases and perspectives, realize that we all have them, realize that they affect those around us, whether we intend it or not? How do we move forward and communicate clearly and without intentionally or unintentionally, if it's possible, harming another?
Well, you actually, I think, stated one of the steps, which is we have to recognize and accept that we have biases and that our perspective is not the only perspective.
It's not?
No, sorry.
I thought I was perfect.
Well, you are perfect, but because God made you wonderfully and uniquely and in his image. However, your perspective is not perfect.
Oh, man. Did you really have to tell me that?
I did, because I'm in an honorary mood. I told you that earlier today.
Yes. Can three people demonstrate the same bias at the exact same moment?
Absolutely. Think of a football stadium. All the people on one side are going to say,
are we back to football?
I mean, yeah.
Michael said it was interesting about the colors.
Thanks. That one was actually mine. I didn't use that one from a borrowed. It's actually one that I've learned about. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. You can have thousands. I mean, look at our country's elections for the last 3, 4, I don't even know how many elections. It's been a pretty close number of people for one politician versus the number for the other politician. And so how can all of these people think one candidate is the better choice? And how can all of these people think their candidate is the better choice? So absolutely, I think 3 people can demonstrate the same bias at the exact same moment. And that, like I said, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. So I think first and foremost, you have to recognize that and accept that you have a bias, that your perspective is one perspective and that there are other perspectives. Michael missed this, so I'm going to do it again. What do you see, Fran?
A book.
What do you see? What's this part of the book, Fran?
Oh, that's the front of the book, Shelley.
No, it's not. It's the back of the book.
But it's the front of the book.
Oh, you're right.
Wait, it's the back of the book. No, it's the back of the book.
Okay. Sorry, Michael.
Right.
I just wanted to catch you up on our whole, silly rant about it's how you look at something at that exact moment. And it's everything. It affects everything. When you're a child, what your perspective is very different than when you're an adult. When you shared your pictures before, your picture in Galveston that you shared, you were at one point in your life, and then years later, when you shared your other picture, you were at a different point in your life. So your perspectives have changed.
And it's something, and I'm going to give even a more personal example now. Prior to all my health changes, I worked and cared for individuals, adults with developmental disabilities. I worked in a big facility, in a small group home, and then I did home health care. And I worked with senior citizens and other people who needed help in their homes. And I always went in with the perspective of helping them be as independent as possible, especially the individuals with DD. That was and so I would push them and encourage them, and if it was in their program, I would push that.
Mm-hmm.
And now that have different abilities, and I realize that there are times, yeah, I want to be as independent as possible, but there are times that it's okay to let someone push my wheelchair, because I'm saving my physical resources to be able to use them at another time. And them pushing me is not me being lazy, and it's not me just being selfish. And that's what sometimes I would perceive of the individuals when I would say, oh, you need to roll down from the front door to the group room, because that was their program. And if they didn't, I would, oh, come on, you just got to do it. This is your program. This is what you have to do. And so my perspective as a DSP was to make sure they did their program. But their perspective was probably like, dude, get this lady out of my face, because I'm ready to punch her, because I'm tired. I worked all day. My body hurts and I just don't feel like it today. But in my head, I thought I was doing the right thing. I had no ill intent of ever being pushing my will upon that person. I just wanted them to reach their fullest potential. I wanted them to be as independent as possible. But now I realize, and so my perspective has changed.
Mm-hmm.
My bias, I have come to realize the biases I had, and now I have different biases. I'm many newer biases, but in the same sense, I don't see myself in a wheelchair, and I don't see myself with, multiple braces, etc. I wear this many braces a day to go out into the public when I get fully ready to rock and roll. And recently I'm pretty much always in a wheelchair. So I don't perceive what the public sees. I still see myself as the person that was on the horse on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I still try to do the things that was the person on the beach, which probably is not the wisest thing in the world, because I don't perceive myself. Actually, I had someone call me on it. They were like, Fran, you were on a ladder the day after you got out of the hospital. Literally. He just said that earlier. I went, he says, you might need to learn what it means to rest. Yeah. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you were on a ladder. You had just gotten out of the hospital. Well, it just needed to be done. That was my perspective. That was my thoughts. And I didn't see myself as someone that shouldn't be on a ladder, because I figured out how to use a ladder in a relatively safe manner.
Relatively.
So my perspective was completely different than this person's perspective. But it doesn't, and in actuality, their perspective was much more correct than mine was, in that I don't know how to rest, and that I was not doing a wise thing. But in my perspective was, this had to get done. There was no one else around.
Yeah, Mom, ladders. They're not good things for certain people to have at their houses. Mom knows nothing. Mom knows nothing. Well, the fan, the roof, whatever she puts the ladder up and needs to get to and get done. And she's impatient sometimes with her son and her daughter, son-in-law and daughter-in-law getting there in the time that she wants us to get there to do things. And, she would rather just go do them herself, because for 99.9% of the things, she is very capable still, even though she's old. No, she's not. I'm just kidding.
Are we going to go there?
No.
You hate heights, Michael?
That's what a handyman is.
Okay, I'll climb the ladder for you.
But Michael brings up a good point, and this is not about, it is about perspectives. God has given each of us different talents and abilities. And we need to allow those who have different talents and abilities help us and do things for us, so that they can share those God-given talents and abilities. What?
He was referring to, he had said went as far, but we both had automatically flipped it to 4.
Oh, okay. Oh, and I still didn't see it, even when
I saw it, but I just automatically. Anyway,
it's the Southern Illinois way of
perspective.
pronouncing it.
Far.
It's like
a
far,
creek or a creek.
right?
Are you in the creek?
Farty far, going down highway farty far. Sorry, it's a St. Louis regional thing. I can't help it. I actually don't say it that way because it annoys me, but but yeah, I mean, just if we can afford it and it's something that we shouldn't necessarily be doing, then let's bless other people and let them do what their talents and abilities are that God has given them. So it's a perspective. It's my perspective. It's my perspective on how that should go.
Let me ask you something.
No, it's 47. That's the answer. Sorry. I have a lot of squirrels running around in my head.
It's okay. How does one communicate knowing perspectives are different? How does one approach a situation? If let's say you're in a you have a friendship, or it's a family relationship, or it's a relationship with a student, it's a relationship with a teacher, it's a relationship with a parent, any of those, how do you resolve perspective conflicts so that you can communicate effectively and come to some ground where your perspective is at least similar?
Well, I thought I knew the answer to that. And maybe this method applies in other situations. Yes, you do, Michael. But so how I would try to resolve that with Kevin is if he and I had a different viewpoint of something, or if we had come to a different decision about something, I would ask him how he came to that decision. So for me, I was trying to see his perspective because that would possibly change my perspective. Not that I was trying to get him to see things the way I saw them. I was trying to see things the way he saw them. But to him, he felt like I was trying to change him to see the way I was seeing it.
Okay.
So for him and I, that didn't work. So now, I mean, we'll be married 29 years on Sunday. It took me a really long time to figure it out, but I try not to ask him those questions. But when I do ask him those questions, he understands that I like all that information. I because I understand that it's how we come to a decision that can change future decisions and maybe the one that is being decided upon at the moment. And apparently my dad used to do that to my mom, and it also drove my mom crazy. So
let me see what else your mom said. Speaking of, I really like it because she was commenting about when you said she was old.
Yes, I am, but my perspective says I'm not. I know. I'm just kidding. Violet and I say that someone is not old until they're 90 or older. So you're not old. You've got a long time to go yet.
They have changed some thing about it being old, really, where midlife is and all of that.
Probably because we do have longer life expectancies now, unless you are on ladders and you fall off of them.
But then you have Michael around, so you're doing okay.
Then you have Michael to pick you up. And thank you for the anniversary wishes, Michael.
So I mean,
and Mom says yes, it did. What my dad did to her and what I did to my husband drove her crazy too.
And it does sometimes when we want a deeper perspective, a deeper understanding to understand someone's perspective, and someone else is just trying to get from point A to point B without a lot of hoopla. They see that as the hoopla.
Right.
It comes down to communication. How do we communicate with one another?
Alex, you haven't said balance. Are you still watching?
She's having internet problems.
Oh, okay. She did say that earlier. We were cutting out. But I don't know that balance can be applied here.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
It is a communication thing. It is, you might say something that I perceive differently than what you intended. So being able to communicate that to you, that maybe it was offensive to me, you have to, I think, feel confident enough in that relationship to possibly have an uncomfortable discussion, or to say, oh gosh, no, that is not what I meant at all, and I'm so sorry that's how it came out, or that's, but I communication is huge, and I'm going to be honest to the people that are joining us today. The reason for my wanting to talk about perspective is I was in a special education IEP meeting yesterday, and some comments were made by the school district staff that I don't think they really meant them to be hurtful to the parent. I think they were trying to be complimentary to their staff, but from the parent's perspective, and from my perspective, sitting with the parent, it was hurtful to the parent. And so I got on my business page and on my group, and I said, we got to think about what we're saying. And I think we do. I really do think we have to think about these things. Think about, especially in a group setting like that, what is it going to add to the conversation? And will it add something for everyone? Maybe the school staff thought it would. The comment was made that the length of time for the meeting was longer than what was scheduled. And first of all, I have a problem with a meeting only being scheduled for during a teacher's prep time, or during a teacher's lunchtime. And there not being leeway to go over that scheduled amount.
Mm-hmm.
And so the meeting went longer than the scheduled amount. And the comment was made that, well, some teachers won't get lunch now, so I hope that's okay with them, or something like that. That's not the exact wording. I can't remember exactly how it was worded. But while that is, that's like, what do you call, like a backhanded compliment? Like, it's really
a backhanded slap in the face too.
Well, yeah, it's more like a yeah, like, oh, it was almost like, well, too bad you missed lunch, but you can blame it on the parent because they wanted to talk too much. They took longer than their allotted time, which was the deal. The meeting was scheduled for once around the clock, or an hour, and they had only given the parents this much time to talk and to express any concerns. Now, granted, there had been discussion beforehand, and I got that. I understood that. I knew about all that before the meeting conversation. But there are things, it's an IEP decision, an IEP team decision that were supposed to be decided at the meeting. How can you have a discussion in 10 minutes?
And so for those watching.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
I'm just going to throw it in here. For those watching, you have the right to say, okay, well, if we don't have enough time, then let's schedule another meeting. And you do not have to sign anything. And it does not go into effect. And they cannot.
That's not true.
Force it. Oh, really? They can force it into effect?
In some states, you don't have to sign and give permission.
Okay, but you can say this meeting was not ended, and then you want another meeting, correct?
Right.
There was not enough time.
And how that would work then would be the previous IEP would stay in effect
until
this
that
next
meeting.
one was done. Yeah. Yeah. So in a
Okay,
lot of
sorry.
states,
Yeah.
no, that's okay. But yeah, you absolutely have the right in all states to say, well, we need to postpone this, or that's not the word I want, continue this meeting at another time. But what happened was, because there was that time associated, and having an agenda is a good thing, because then it's like, okay, well, this person's going to speak now and this subject's going to be covered here, and that sort of thing is great. But there were times behind each one of those things. This is going to start at 1 o'clock, and this is going to be at 1:05, and this is going to be at 1:15. And Fran, I apologize because I know you don't know what I'm saying right now. But that puts pressure on everybody to hurry up and say what they have to say, and there not be time for discussion. So what happened was the meeting was already over, the once around the clock, and the principal said, some of my we've already gone past the time that I've allotted for my teachers, my subs. And the parent said, well, I can say what I need to say in 5 minutes. Just give me 5 more minutes. So there was just that added pressure of hurry up and get out what you have to say. But then there wasn't time for discussion about what she had to say.
So that perspective of what,
right. So you're right. They can absolutely, we could have absolutely, and that may have been where the principal was going, is, hey, we're going to have to stop this and continue it at another time.
And I'm just thinking on the agenda as you were speaking, the caregivers group, we've tried to implement an agenda for our weekly Zooms, and somehow it's fallen upon me to keep us moving along, because we record our Zooms, and we want to stay within a certain amount of time. So I have to balance. I want to allow people to share, but we need to keep us moving, and we have a relative time, but it's that balancing act. And how do you communicate if you have a new person on and they're sharing? How do you redirect them for a little until we're done recording, and then you can continue with your story? How do you communicate that?
I think what you just said is that, we do have a time crunch, and we are more than happy to hear your story. However, right now is not the appropriate time to share that.
However, if they're in the middle of some of the deep, because for those that don't know, we're talking about the people that are in long-term care that have been isolated through this entire COVID thing. So now it's been, let me think of the word, 14 months that some people have still not seen their families in person. So how do you break in on that? So, it's the perspective of it. It is, and that's why I said way, way, way back when we were talking, I think it's what the intent of your heart is.
Yep.
What is your intent in what you're communicating? And a lot of times that may smooth out what comes out if you don't say it the way exactly you meant.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's a perspective it's not a cut and dried thing. It's not an easy thing. And yeah, people's feelings are important, and you don't want to offend someone. And like I said, I understand agendas. I'm not an opponent of an agenda. I'm not an opponent of having a time frame for a meeting.
They're just fluid.
Yeah, you have to understand and build in a buffer, maybe, for if the meeting goes longer, or if especially IEP meetings, there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of things to be discussed. And I went on my rant, so to speak, before I even spoke to the parent. That was just my impression, my perspective of how things went. I asked the parent to then watch it afterwards, because like I told you where it was. And she was like, yep, that was exactly how I felt. I felt like my time, my thoughts, my concerns were not as valuable as the teacher's time or the teacher's lunch. And it isn't that one is more important. It's that they're both equal. And oh my gosh, we have to go. It's almost time around the clock. Okay, sorry everybody. Have a great week. Have a great perspective and make sure you're checking it out as to what you're thinking and doing.